propaganda and challenging you to use your brain. It's time to tap into the truth.
Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed time to tap into the truth. Welcome to the night's broadcast. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are and whatever you may be doing. This is your host, Tim Tapp, coming to you live from historic Roane County, Tennessee. And we're going to jump right into things. Initially, I had hoped to be discussing some more of the fallout from the Mandela Memorial, talk about the insanity involving this fake sign language guy who obviously has his fair share of psychological issues, including having hallucinations and facing murder charges in the past, and the continuing fallout also, the international embarrassment that was the selfie. Yeah, I touched on that in the last broadcast where I kind of wonder why folks are making such a big deal about it. We know the guy's narcissistic, let's move on, but it just won't die. People are having fun with it, people are making fun of it, so on and so forth. But as it turns out, today was a pretty big day news-wise here in the United States. We had another high school shooting in the state of Colorado, and we'll focus on that early. We had a foiled bombing attack that was designed to target at the Wichita, Kansas airport. And we have the case in Texas of a brand new affliction that, according to some people, seem to be in effect for close to 80% of Americans. The new dreaded affluenza. At any rate, we'll get to those things after just a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, let me thank you for being here with us on Tap Into the Truth. I always appreciate everybody who listens, whether you're listening live or whether you check us out on the podcast. A little bit of housekeeping, though. If you are looking for alternative ways to consume Tap Into the Truth, you can find this on Stitcher.com. You can find us at TuneIn.com, and you can find us on iTunes. Also, you can find links to past broadcasts here and to the blog talk version of the show at tapintothetruth.com. And just FYI, we will be having our usual Sunday broadcast starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central, over on Blog Talk. And our guest will be Danny Page in the first hour, and we will have an hour uninterrupted where we'll be discussing his campaign in an attempt to primary Lamar Alexander for U.S. Senate. Now, let's go ahead and jump into this situation, shall we? What we had is another modern tragedy. There is no question at all the nature of violence, and of course, people on the left are going to immediately jump to the conclusions that guns and gun violence is at the heart of this. Let's look at the AP report, then we'll get some commentary. All right. Now, first of all, coming off of the AP report, this is one of the most recent, so it has been updated, but bottom line is that a student armed with a shotgun and possibly seeking revenge against a teacher who shot two students at a Colorado high school today, Friday, December 13th, 2013. He shot two students. He was looking for a teacher before apparently killing himself. Now, one student, a 15-year-old girl, was listed in critical condition at an area hospital. Arapahoe County Sheriff Grayson Robinson said that the other suffered a minor gunshot wound and was released from the hospital a little bit earlier Friday night. Earlier being from now, of course. Robinson also told the news conference that two Molotov cocktails were found at the scene. One had been detonated, releasing a significant amount of smoke, and the second had not been deployed and was rendered safe. He didn't give any details about where the devices were found or where they were detonated. Police did not release the name or the age of the student who died from the apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, and at the time of this report, his body remained inside the school Friday night. Robinson said the initial investigation pointed towards what, quote, may have been some controversy or disagreement between the student and the teacher. We believe his motive may have been a reaction to that, end quote. He said that after the student entered the high school at approximately 12:33 p.m. their time, near the student parking lot, he asked for the teacher by name. The teacher, he said, made a wise tactical decision by choosing to leave the building in hopes of drawing the armed student outside. Well, hopefully that was the motivation. It could have also just been as easily hoping to escape the path of an armed person looking to shoot you. Either way, wise tactical decision. I'll give him that. Robinson said that he did not know if the student was enrolled in the teacher's class. Although authorities initially said they believed that the student who suffered the critical gunshot wound had confronted the gunman, Robinson said that it now appears the student may simply have been in the area of the shooter and was shot. So, unfortunately, a wrong place, wrong time kind of scenario. Now, he said that the gunman's body was found in the interior of the building in a classroom and that he apparently killed himself. I get a little concerned when the police investigating it say apparently. They're leaving some room for discussion on the matter. Maybe they think someone else there had a gun, or maybe they're covering for one of their own that went ahead and shot him. I don't think there's a need to cover. The kid was obviously unstable and was obviously willing to shoot people, so he was a threat. At any rate, several other places related to the shootings were being investigated. These included the shooter's car, the home that he lived in, and a second home that he, quote, had some level of access to. Of course, video footage was shot from helicopters flying overhead that showed students leaving the building in an orderly fashion with their hands up. They were then frisked by security officers before moving on. The school, now of course they have to add this to the report, don't they? The school is about 8 miles east of Columbine High School over in Littleton, Colorado. And for those of you that don't recognize the name or don't remember, that is of course where 2 teenage shooters killed 12 of their classmates and a teacher before killing themselves back in 1999. Now, that's the report. That's the latest. That's the hot new information coming out, and it is both a little chilling and a little mind-numbing to think that that's what we're facing now in our high schools. But what concerns me more than anything is, of course, the political left will again use this as one more excuse, one more reason, a little more rationale to call for more gun control. But I'm going to quote somebody that I saw on a posting on Facebook today. Actually, an individual that I know. I don't necessarily have permission to give out his name right now, but he made the statement and the observation quite clear. Colorado, especially since the institution of new, stricter gun laws that went into effect earlier this year, Colorado has some of the strictest gun control laws in the country. And it didn't do anything to stop this. You can't legislate acts of such violence. Evil's going to find a way. It's that simple. It does no good to try to further infringe on the rights of law-abiding citizens. It certainly doesn't protect anyone because of the actions of a few people that either simply don't value human life the way they should, from failure of being taught to do so, or some mental defect. We'll find out more about this kid that went in and did this shooting as time goes on. There's no doubt, no question. But ultimately, right now, the only thing that we know for sure is that this kid had a problem. What was the nature of the problem? What was the issue between he and the teacher? We don't know any of that yet. We had heard stories, reports initially, that this girl who got shot critically had tried to talk him down, had confronted him about having the weapon. Excuse me. Turns out that may not necessarily have been the case. Ultimately, though, this is still an incident. It's a tragedy. And we will be discussing it and talking about it for some time to come, I'm sure. After all, we still haven't stopped talking about Columbine. But in truth, this will be used as an excuse. It will be politicized. And just like after Newtown and just like after Columbine, I'm going to ask you right now, please use your common sense. Look at this rationally. Don't let emotion override logic and rationale. And do not let these people politicize this tragedy. It doesn't make sense to allow that to occur. And we shouldn't let it. All right, we're going to take a quick break, then we will move on to our next topic tonight, the Wichita Airport bombing scare. The FBI was on top of it. They put an end to it. That's good. We'll talk about it right after this. Stay with us.
Tap into the Truth. Check us out at tapintothetruth.com for our latest blog posts and for links to all of our past broadcasts. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and to follow us on Twitter. That's Tap Into the Truth right here on Spreaker Radio.
Yes, that's right. Ladies and gentlemen, Tap Into the Truth. Thanks for staying with us. Thanks for still being here. You have heard me mention on several occasions PatriotSpace.com, a alternative to Facebook. It is a social media website that is designed and meant for American-loving patriots. Well, all that's still true, and I still highly recommend you check them out, only something has changed. My friends over at the Lady Patriots, and you're more than welcome to check out ladypatriots.com as well, they've taken over Patriot Space and have changed the name. It is now officially ladypatriotspace.com, but just like over at their main website, you don't have to be a lady patriot to participate because they welcome gentlemen patriots too. Not to mention, they also welcome student patriots. So, there's a place for everybody there. I highly recommend you check it out and spend some time visiting. Also, a reminder, we are using Magnitude now for our bumper music. Right now, we're focusing on the Christmas music, but once the Christmas season has passed, we'll be utilizing other tunes from up-and-coming independent artists, and we are completely legal and completely podcast safe. The artists are getting their commissions. The licensing agreement being fulfilled. At any rate, let's go ahead and get to the next topic. After all, 45 minutes isn't a lot of time when you're covering 3 different stories. And here's the deal with this one. And let's go ahead. A Kansas man who authorities say in the past made threats to engage in violent jihad against the U.S. was charged today for allegedly plotting to detonate a car bomb at the Wichita Mid-Continent Airport. Terry L. Lowen, 58, an aviation technician who the FBI says was inspired by Osama bin Laden, spent months planning the attack and was intent on using his employee access card to drive the vehicle loaded with explosives to a terminal. Barry Grimson, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Kansas, said, citing the criminal complaint, that Lowen planned on dying in the explosion as a martyr. The complaint also says that an undercover FBI employee told Lowen about a recent trip overseas and a meeting with members of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. The agent told Lowen that brothers were interested in his airport access and asked if he'd be willing to plant some type of device. Lowen allegedly responded, quote, "Am I interested? Yes, I still need time to think about it, but I can't imagine anything short of arrest stopping me." Now, the U.S. citizen allegedly wrote to the FBI agent that he was inspired by Osama bin Laden and Anwar al-Awlaki. He was arrested at 5:30 a.m., this Friday morning, without incident while trying to gain access to the tarmac. At the time, his access card did not work and he was with the vehicle he allegedly believed was filled with explosives. Authorities said there was never a bomb that could explode and that the public was never in any danger. Lowen has been under investigation by the Wichita Joint Terrorism Task Force since early summer of 2013. It is alleged that in the past he has made statements that he was resolved to commit an act of violent jihad. The affidavit filed in support of the criminal complaint alleges that Lowen studied the airport's layout, researched flight schedules, assisted in acquiring car bomb components, and talked about sacrificing his own life in the attack. He faces 3 federal charges, including attempting to use a weapon of mass destruction. If convicted, Lowen faces a life sentence in federal prison. Lowen made an initial court appearance Friday afternoon, answering yes in a strong voice to procedural questions. A U.S. magistrate ordered that he remain jailed at least until a hearing next Friday, after prosecutors said he was a flight risk and a danger to the community. I think that's pretty obvious at that point, or at least it should be. Now, his wife and attorney declined to comment after the hearing. Quote, "This incident is a reminder that we must remain vigilant and reaffirm our commitment to protecting this country and its ideals from those who wish to do us harm." That quote from Senator Jerry Moran, Republican from Kansas. Authorities said they believe Lowen acted alone. Sorry, weren't they the guys setting this guy up? No others were arrested, and no other arrests are expected. Now, the Wichita Mid-Continental Airport had 68 scheduled commercial flights on Friday, according to flight tracking site FlightAware.com. Now, I use the word set up in this case, not to say that he was actually set up in a negative fashion, but, you know, the FBI was in connection with this guy. You know, they were doing their usual investigative technique where they lead you to believe that you're going to be doing them a favor and you're working with them and, hey, we're on the same team. You know, they tiptoe right up to the legal definition of entrapment, and then they back away at the last second. And I'm, again, not questioning the technique in this particular case. Bottom line is, this guy obviously wanted to commit an act of jihad. Now, with a name like that, you really wouldn't expect this to be the kind of guy who would be inspired by bin Laden. And at least to this point, in none of the official reports, there's been no obvious connection to what religious path he might be on. Of course, that really wouldn't fit the narrative of the homegrown terrorist, and I'm surprised they even let get out the fact that this man had made statements about jihad in the past. Again, much like with today's shooting in Colorado, no matter what you do, crazy will find a way. This guy happened to believe that he was working in the best interest of whatever his belief system may happen to be. He was intent on trying to blow up innocent people in an airport during our Hanukkah/Christmas holiday time of the year here. You know, whether you celebrate Yule or Hanukkah or Christmas or some other lesser celebrated festival here at the end of the year, it's generally a pretty foregone conclusion that attacks at Christmas time is particularly hurtful to Christians. I don't know what this guy was motivated by, but he's obviously not particularly remorseful, at least not at this point. It sounds as though he would be perfectly willing and perfectly happy to try again. He evidently wanted to die. He wanted to become a martyr. So whether they come out and admit that he had converted to Islam or not, there's very little question that this guy believed in several of the principles of Islam. Otherwise, he would not consider this to be a solid path to martyrdom. Killing of innocent people is not a good idea for someone who thinks they're going to go to heaven. The problem with this particular mindset is, however, that if you're not a Muslim, then you're not innocent, and you deserve to die. I don't know what the end result's going to be with this, but once we get past all of the he said, she said, allegedly this, alleged that, and have a trial, this guy's going to be hard-pressed to find a way out. His guilt is not really in question, at least not at this point. So his attorneys will probably try some legal trickery. Legal trickery that obviously can be effective, as is well evidenced in the third and probably the worst story of the day, the case of Affluenza. I'm trying real hard to get back into a Christmassy spirit, and it's really hard to think and feel Christmassy when people are going around trying to blow people up. It's hard to feel very Christmassy when people are going around trying to shoot teachers and classmates. It's even harder to feel particularly Christmassy when you know that the people on the political left side of the spectrum are going to try to utilize this incident in Colorado for gun control. We've got to move to a point where we are no longer politicizing tragedies and focus on what can be done that's a legitimate solution. Period. There's nothing else to say on the matter. But before we get into the affluenza, let's take another quick break. Get a little more Christmas music because, like I said, I'm trying really hard to feel Christmassy. So let's hit some Christmas music, take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll talk about affluenza. We'll be right back. Alright, we are back. Thanks for staying with us, and thanks for being part of the audience tonight. Hope you're enjoying the show, hope you're enjoying the Christmas music, and hope that you actually are having a happy, and merry, and blessed Christmas season. Please understand, I am Christian, so when I say Merry Christmas, I mean that I hope you're enjoying whatever festivity that you have. But for me, as a Christian, to say Happy Hanukkah, while it may sound inclusive, is kind of an empty thing because, Hanukkah does not mean to me what it would mean to you if you're Jewish. And, so with that in mind, please understand that when I say that, I don't mean to be non-inclusive. I mean for you to feel the joy to the optimum amount of whatever it is that you're celebrating this time of year. I would desperately like to have, before the Christmas season is over, an episode where we can move away from politics and bad news and actually just kind of discuss the holiday season. Unfortunately, there's just so much stuff going on right now, and it seems so terribly negative. Let's go ahead and let's get this Ethan Couch thing out of the way. For those of you who haven't heard, here's the background, all right? 16-year-old in Texas. He's just avoided spending who knows how much time it would have been in prison for killing 4 people in a car accident back in June. How did he manage this, you might ask? Well, this happened after the judge bought into his lawyer's argument that he was the victim of wealth. So for those of you that are out there still this last minute trying to buy your Mega Millions lottery ticket, think again, be real careful, be real cautious, because you too may be the victim of wealth. Now, according to the local CBS affiliate, CBS DFW, they reported that Ethan Couch was sentenced in Fort Worth, Texas juvenile court to 10 years probation for the drunk driving crash that ended the lives of a youth pastor, Brian Jennings, of Holly and Shelby Boyles, and Brianna Mitchell. Prosecutors were asking that Couch serve 20 years in prison. His blood alcohol level was a .24. That's 3 times the legal limit for an adult. Emphasizing the fact that this is a 16-year-old kid. His blood alcohol level should be 0 because it's not legal for him to be drinking. Now, the story gets better, though. Psychologist Dr. G. Dick Miller, and if you heard this guy talking on Anderson Cooper the other day, instead of calling him Dr. Miller, you probably just want to call him Dick. It is his first name. I'm not calling him Richard. Ordinarily, I try not to be quite so crude, so please forgive me. But at any rate, Dr. Miller testified for the defense that Couch suffered from, quote, affluenza, a condition in which his family felt that wealth brought privilege and there were no rational link between behavior and consequence. Miller said that Couch's parents never punished him for his behavior, even when, in a separate incident, cops found him passed out in a car with a naked 14-year-old girl. Really? As part of his sentence, Couch will be sent to a private counseling center that costs $450,000 a year, which will be paid for by his father. Well, that's good, rather than taxpayers paying for him. Money and privilege has helped defendants avoid serious prison time for violent crimes before. In a particularly clear example cited by journalist Glenn Greenwald, hedge fund manager Martin Joel Enzinger served just 90 days in jail after driving a car that seriously injured a bicyclist and fled the scene of the accident back in 2010. The district attorney in the case charged Elzinger with 2 misdemeanors instead of a felony, noting that felony convictions have some pretty serious job implications for someone in his profession. Now, what I want to know is why any judge would ever accept such a lame defense. Affluenza? The kid's a victim of wealth and parents that aren't involved. The kid's the victim? He got liquored up, he got in a car, and he went out and killed 4 people. And he's the victim. A victim of having too much money available and parents who just weren't involved enough to teach him that he had consequences. Well, sadly, unfortunately, this is the kind of world that folks that tend to be pushing the left agenda have been looking for. Why, there shouldn't be consequences for people's actions. Choices are just choices, and we should be free to live and run around willy-nilly, and there should be just no consequence. Who are you to judge us? Part of the punishment here, 10 years probation, time in a treatment facility. What exactly is this treatment facility supposed to do? And then part of the punishment is he's not going to be allowed to be around his family. Well, because it's partially their fault, because they never disciplined him. Well, I'll give you that. It's hard to argue against that. If you're going to be a parent, you have to discipline your child. If you love them, you have to teach them what they can and cannot do, what is and is not acceptable, what is right and what is wrong. Now, your value set doesn't necessarily have to agree with mine, but guess what? You cannot argue with me the fact that a parent doesn't have that responsibility, because you do. You don't have to like it, but if you don't want the job of being a parent, then don't have a kid. That's a problem that's easy enough to solve. I understand a lot of people have children out of a feeling of an obligation. A lot of people have children as a result of failure to take the proper precautions. Some people have children thinking that it's just going to be, oh, so great and awesome, and then realize after the child's there that there is a little bit of work involved. At least if you're going to do it right. I don't understand how anywhere in Texas this kid gets away with this. What judge can honestly accept a defense of affluenza for underage drinking, drinking and driving, and vehicular manslaughter? Was it first-degree murder? Obviously not. Was it second-degree murder? That gets a little iffy. But the manslaughter charge, pretty obvious he's guilty. If you're concerned that the kid didn't understand that there are consequences for these kind of actions, then maybe this might have been a good opportunity to start teaching that lesson. Perhaps if you felt like, I don't know, that 20 years in prison was too much, then, I don't know, maybe a reduced sentence would be appropriate. But a little time in jail would probably been appropriate. After all, 4 innocent lives were snuffed out because of the actions of this twit. This unthinking, unfeeling, uncaring, I think it's cool to go get drunk and run around because I have affluenza. The nerve of the attorney to try and use this defense is mind-boggling, but the fact that there was a judge anywhere that would buy into it is beyond the pale. How does this happen in a country that's supposed to be a country of laws? There are countless areas in our judicial system where the judges have no leeway, where the law is clear and they must follow it. But in this particular instance, does the punishment fit the crime? Well, obviously not. So what have we had today? We've had a wild day. We had a situation where we have to question the very nature of evil. A kid that feels like it's an appropriate reaction to a fight with a teacher, whether it be an argument or a controversy or whatever, as it's put, the appropriate response is to take a shotgun to school and plan on shooting the teacher? Shooting other students because they got in the way? That's not a positive thing. That's not a peace on earth, goodwill towards men kind of thing, which should be just bubbling over out there this time of year. Come on. It's one of the many faces of evil. A man who's willing to use his access to an airport to try and blow up innocent people. And yes, believe it or not, the kid that goes around with no consequences becomes an agent for evil. But the real face of evil here is the judge that lets this lame argument work. The people of Texas should not stand for it. They should remove this judge from her position immediately. It's my understanding that she's planning on retiring at the end of next year. She should be removed now. She should not be in a position ever to have this kind of opportunity again. She's proven she's unworthy and unfit to hold the office of the judgeship. These are all faces of evil, and unfortunately this is what we must face. We've got to face it, and much worse. We have to face politicians like John Boehner who want to attack conservative groups because they don't like his deal. And he's trying to blame them for the government shutdown now. One that he supported at the time, by the way, for the record, Johnny. Touched a little bit on that on our last broadcast, and I will be touching on it in a little more depth on Sunday's show on Blog Talk. So please check us out there. We're inside the last minute of the show, so got to start wrapping it up. So let's avoid the crazy, ladies and gentlemen. I want everybody to have a happy holiday season. Obviously, that just can't happen for everyone, but we've got to avoid the crazy. We got to start looking out for each other. And not in a collectivist, socialist kind of way, but in a get to know your neighbors, get to know your neighborhood kind of way. At any rate, don't take my word for it. Definitely don't take their word for it. Take some time, do your own research, use your brain, and always be prepared to work just a little bit harder if you really want to tap into the truth. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will be back again soon, and in the meanwhile, a little more Christmas music to send you out on. Have a great night. and good night.